On Point is brought to you by Dargin Global.
A very good evening and welcome to another episode of On Point. I'm Patria K.
And I'm Dennis Chung.
And we've got lots to talk about. Yes. Busy week.
A busy week. The first thing is a conference. It has the Jamaica Labour Party conference, has received a lot of great reviews in terms of the production. You know, they say it's the best produced conference ever.
It was huge.
It was big. But, you know, I rather think that the speeches were excellent also. The context with which the Prime Minister said the whole thing, the things that he focused on, that is what people want to hear.
I think there was this marrying of technology.
Yeah.
Good use of technology throughout the conference, and it was well rehearsed.
Yeah.
It was clear what the different speakers were going to be addressing, and they were in top form on Sunday for that 86th conference for the Jamaica Labour Party.
I mean, one of the things that were said I enjoy was when Bobby Montague said if we spend 1.6 billion in St. Thomas, no bush wouldn't leave out there.
There was humor.
Yeah.
But did they look election ready? There were certainly party hopefuls when they go to every single party conference. You're going to hear the chants in quiet circles, call it and you call it.
Yeah, I think what the Prime Minister was saying is that he asked them if they're ready, but I don't think that they're ready yet. I got the impression that there's some more work that needs to be done on the ground, because election is one on the day. And also, I think they said there are some projects that they want to get in place first, which I would expect.
And some projects that need to be finished. I mean, the road projects still have not been completed. And we need to see the fruit of some of the things, some of the seeds that have been planted. So, but it is constitutionally due certainly before 2021.
Yeah, I think it will be next year, by middle of next year. That's my
Dennis just call it. Call it, Dennis, call it.
The other thing though, I mean, as a Jamaica College old boy, you know, my school is in the Manning Cup finals.
Beaming with pride.
In the semifinals, one of the KC defenders actually, in trying to frustrate the Jamaica College player, bit him on the shoulder.
Ouch.
And got a slap across his face. But I remember it was made famous, that sort of incident with Suarez. Remember, Suarez actually was known for biting people at that international level, and it was surprising to see it.
Really?
Yeah.
At that stage.
Yeah, the strategy, I think, was if you can't beat them, bite them.
I guess he learned from the greats. Yeah. There is a very special big up that I have to give, though, because on Saturday night, last week being the Journalist Week, on Saturday night, Press Association of Jamaica Awards, our very own superhero of the world, dust off your cape, Jason, walked away with not one but 2 awards.
Jason Momo Young.
Yes, he walked away with the Ken Dawson Award for videography.
Yeah, man, congrats.
Phenomenal work on that piece. And also himself and Anika Robinson, also from BATV, walked away with the award for Best Television Feature.
Does money come with that?
Really nice piece.
Because we should all be treated.
Jason, watch out for Dennis. We have a lot going on in the show for you today. The future looks bright for venture capital investment here in Jamaica. We're going to be talking about a newly launched umbrella that will look at those various options.
Then later in the show, it's arguably my biggest pet peeve, something I speak about all the while, the issue of productivity in Jamaica. We'll be speaking to a lady who knows a lot about that.
But first, here are this week's top business stories.
At number 5, Charles Schwab is buying rival TD Ameritrade in a $26 billion stock swap. The transaction gives Schwab about 12 million client accounts, $1.3 trillion in client assets, and approximately $5 billion in annual revenue. The combined company is expected to control 24 million client accounts. At number 4, ride-sharing service Uber has lost its license to operate in London over safety concerns. The city's transit authority says it's not renewing Uber's license to operate, citing several breaches that put passengers' safety at risk. The transit authority is also arguing that Uber is not currently fit and proper to continue operating in London. However, Uber has promised to appeal the decision and now has 21 days to do so. Uber can continue to operate while the appeals process is underway. At number 3, an Al Jazeera investigation has accused politicians in the Caribbean of being involved in a corrupt trade of diplomatic posts in exchange for money. Al Jazeera's investigative unit is alleging that politicians in Dominica and Grenada are willing to accept secret campaign contributions from wealthy foreign businessmen in exchange for diplomatic passports. However, the main political parties in these countries have strongly denied the allegations. At number 2, Bank of Jamaica Governor Richard Bowles says the central bank wants to initiate forward contracts with financial institutions for the timely acquisition of funds for transactions on clients' foreign exchange investment portfolios. He said this is in a bid to smoothen the availability and provision of foreign currency and, as best as possible, prevent reoccurrences of recent heightened demand for the US dollar, which he claims spurred a depreciation in the value of the Jamaican dollar. At number 1, Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says preliminary figures from the Jamaica Tourist Board indicate that Jamaica has earned $3.1 billion to date from tourism. He says the data also indicates that from January to October 2019, the island welcomed 3.4 million visitors. Tourism Minister is predicting that Jamaica will achieve its target of $3.7 billion, which puts the island on track to surpass the Tourism Ministry's 5-pillar growth strategy, which, when proposed in 2016, was projected to result in visitor arrivals increasing to 5 million by 2021 and earning $5 billion.
When we come back, alternative investment opportunities to help boost the local and regional economy. Stay with us right here on Point.
Welcome back to On Point, folks. The Alternative Investment Association, CAREA, is taking a look at business financing, raising capital in a different kind of way, and we're talking about it.
And joining us now to talk about this is the chairman of Caribbean Alternative Investment Association, Christopher Williams. Welcome to On Point.
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about the objective of the entity.
Well, the objective of the entity is to widen the ecosystem. We have grown up in the Caribbean on a diet of commercial banking. And as we have evolved, we have learned that commercial banking cannot be all things to all people. There are just some fiduciary responsibilities that comes with being a commercial bank, basically lending other people's money. And as a result of that, they have to operate in a very strict environment, central bank governed, etc. Now, what we have seen over the last 10 years is that entrepreneurs need a wider ecosystem, a wider financing ecosystem to satisfy their needs. And that ecosystem is the reason we have come to the fore as alternative investments.
So you are the solution to access to cash, which when you talk to most folks, they say, it is my pain point in growing or starting my business.
We are one of the solutions. The reality is, an entrepreneur will or should have several financing partners.
Yes.
They will have a need for a commercial bank. They will have need for an investment bank. And they will have need for an alternative investment institution because of the path that the entrepreneur goes on. He starts out, first of all, with an idea and may not have access to capital to get the business off the ground. Hence, he needs venture capital or private equity or mezz credit. All of these terms are new to us, but these are critical terms in order to get entrepreneurs going.
You've got folks like Joe Matalon and the guys at First Angel who really have been putting in the work with the Angel Investment Network, doing deals, getting capital in the hands of some of these entrepreneurs. How would what you do differ from, say, that Angel group?
Well, we are the association for all of these players. We're not an alternative to First Angels. We want First Angels to be a member of Carrier. We want Proven to be a member of Carrier. We want First Rock, the new entity on point. We want Cygnus, new entity that has come about. We want private equity entities from CEF as an example, the new entity that's global in nature. So there are a number of entities that are popping up that we want to provide the umbrella. So we want to be able to be their voice, be the advocacy entity, be the governance entity, etc. So we're not an operating entity. We are an association of all these entities.
Got you.
Chris, I mean, if you look at the landscape, not just Jamaica. Jamaica is maybe the most developed capital market in the Caribbean.
Within
right?
the English-speaking Caribbean.
English-speaking. But what percent of the market constitutes alternative investments in relation to traditional?
0.001. As you know.
So we have a lot of growth.
We have a lot of growth left in us. Listen, 5-6 years ago, we wouldn't even be talking about investing in stocks. You know what I'm saying? Everybody was fed a diet of government debt. Yeah. So, we have evolved as an ecosystem. The first part of the ecosystem has been the commercial banking. Just go in, put up your security, leverage your first bond, your second bond, your kidney, everything, and sign here, right? That was the initial part of the ecosystem. Then evolved the junior market and the general main market and the stock market in general. But as we have seen, not every company, not every entrepreneur is ready for the capital market, which is the stock market. So there is still need for a deeper ecosystem, and that's where we're seeing entities popping up, and capital is finding its way into this new ecosystem. And what we're doing is putting an association wrap around it so that we can properly structure the growth of this.
But how much of that, how much of the problem is due to the fact that the government policies don't support the growth?
Hadn't.
So it does now?
Not in all cases, but the most fundamental policy support is in place, which is fiscal discipline and not crowding out the private sector, allowing capital to find its way through the nooks and crannies, because the rivers were dried up. You know what I'm saying? Capital just wasn't flowing into certain areas because it was flowing into government people. So we needed the government to operate with way more fiscal discipline and back out, and step aside and realize that they're not the prime, act in this show. They are really the stagehand. You know what I'm saying? They're behind the scenes. So that has changed, and as a result of that, we have been born. We've seen the evolution of the stock market, and the last 5 years has been phenomenal. Now we're seeing the evolution of an alternative investment where you look at mezzanine credit, where people are now taking inventory and receivables as security for providing financing. You're looking at real estate investment trusts, where you can now go into the real estate sector, not by just buying a property, but by investing in a trust and taking a share of that. You're seeing private equity, Proven as an example, where we have provided financing for a number of entities in an equity form, not loan form. And then of course venture capital through First Angels, etc., that have evolved. So we're providing the association wrap on all these new entrants to the market.
Let's talk about the risk appetite of this capital pool. Because if you talk about the fact that many of these entities are not yet ready for the stock market.
Right.
We're talking
many of
about
the entrepreneurial entities.
The entrepreneurial entities, that is. We're talking about a gap perhaps in the governance structure, or whether or not it is still a winning bet.
Right.
Is the capital that's out there willing to take the risk, willing to be the patient, smart kind of capital that's going to turn these ideas into winners for those who are going to take that risk?
Well, let me tell you what my 13-year-old tells me. Daddy, I just want to make some money, right? That's basically him having him $5 and him just want to give it to me and say, Daddy, just make some money for me, right? So when you have investors not having the opportunity to make money from government people, not having to make money from publicly listed stocks, because the stock market, having gone through 5-6 years of tremendous upswing, it's reaching high multiples and reaching a peak. So the opportunity for percentage growth is not going to be as great. So capital now picks up the phone and calls the fund manager and says, Chris, what's going on? I need to make money. So we know as the fund managers have to find alternatives, and we now have to dig deep and become patient and become to look at entrepreneurs that are in the growth phase and say, listen, all right, capital, this is what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to bet on Patricia. We're going to have to, it's going to take us 5 years, but we're going to have to bet on her. And in betting on her, we're going to give her capital, but guess what? We're not just going to give her capital, we're going to give her governance, and we're going to give her training so that she can perform and she can get to where we want her to get to. So, listen, capital goes where is the best return, Capital don't have no friend.
but Chris, one of the criticisms of the capital market is that
not the capital market, capital.
Of capital.
Right.
Of capital. And the market, I'll get into the market now.
Okay.
Because what I'm saying is that, fine, people say, these alternative investments come up, but it's really only 5% of people can afford it.
Right.
Most of the people either don't have the income levels or don't have the education. But you're saying they can still get involved, eh?
No.
They can't.
No. We're on a path. Yeah. Right? The reality is, Dennis, that you need to have capital. To invest. And the process towards creating capital is a long, painstaking one, which requires you to obviously earn more than you spend, and therefore you save and so on. So clearly, a significant portion of our population is not yet in a position where their income is outgrowing the expenses. And so they're not yet in a position to provide that, or to participate, in that capital growth. However, you need that capital growth in order to create the income generating opportunities for them to participate in, and then therefore be able to invest.
Big picture.
So the big picture is you need to be able to have capital invest in you, even if that capital is from the big man. You need to be able to have capital invest in you to start your small business so that you can grow to one day being that big man.
Small business owners love them 100%. Very many are unwilling to give up equity in their businesses.
I don't agree.
Tell me.
I don't agree. I think that through education and through knowledge and so on, ignorance will reduce. You know what I'm saying? That is just the reality. I mean, people would say that Jamaica would never not be a cash economy. And now everybody is swiping a card at an ATM or debit card or so on. So knowledge and experience will teach wisdom and understand that you're going to need a partner. That partner, for some of the wealthier people, is them uncle and them auntie. For you, you don't have an uncle or an auntie, so it's going to have to be a venture capital firm.
How is this going to move the needle? How is this going to change the entrepreneurial landscape in Jamaica? What is this going to mean for new businesses, the developing entrepreneurial space? What is it going to do to it?
I would say, what is it doing? I'm saying it has already started. Where it is evolving is in developers who are now able to pick up the phone and call First Rock or call Epley or call Cygnus and be able to sell them on an idea for a piece of land, which they can't afford to buy. This is just an architect or a guy that studied construction engineering at UTech and has a piece of land that he drives past every day and said, that piece of land could take a couple of houses. And he now pitches that idea.
And when Chris says a couple, he means 400, because we're doing huge developments.
We're doing huge developments,
up.
and I'm saying, but what is happening is that people with ideas are now being able to find access to capital and therefore being able to execute on these ideas. That is going to create wealth for the idea generators.
Chris, let me ask you this question. Controversial one, but I know you can handle it, right? People are going to say, well, with all of this capital movement happening around in Jamaica and the Caribbean, we saw it recently,
yes.
Isn't it going to affect the foreign exchange market and run up the dollar? And are the authorities and BOJ ready to deal with this sort of thing that's happening in terms of development?
I think that capital prefers to stay close to home. It's more comfortable. I can drive past and I can see that Proven is building on Millsboro, and I can see how the building going up. So the fact that I'm invested, I have shares in Proven, I can feel comfortable. And they don't really want to hear that it's in some country that they don't know about. They prefer to be at home. So even though, yes, there will be some leakage of capital to the wider market, the reality is there's still sufficient opportunity here in Jamaica to keep the capital focused on Jamaica. And that's what we need to keep doing. That's a part of the association's role. A part of the association's role is to stay in front of its members and ensure that entrepreneurs, being on point and so on, and excite entrepreneurs so that entrepreneurs can keep the phones ringing. So my capital guys don't feel like them have to go down to Barbados or go down to Costa Rica.
Because they need the capital too.
Because exactly, they need the capital too. But if my entrepreneurs here in Jamaica keep the phones ringing, then the capital not going to go anywhere, because capital prefers to stay at home. Mm-hmm. Capital is more comfortable.
So this association will help.
We have a mandate. We have a mandate to also excite entrepreneurs, to let them know the ecosystem has widened and that there are entities. It's not just only the big banks, but there are entities that have come out and that have started that are looking for entrepreneurs to back.
Not letting you go. There are some deals that are out there that certainly commercial banks have not wanted to touch.
Yes.
That some folks, even in private equity, are saying, and I'm talking about things like marijuana deals,
right,
with medical marijuana, and we are being left behind because the money is afraid to go down that road. Are some of your partners going to be willing to go down that road?
I think some have already. Some have already. If you take a look at the financing of LASCO, in that space, LASCO has already stepped up. If you take a look at Dr. Lowe's operation, he has already received capital injection. So this is private capital now. This is when that's the difference between the fiduciary responsibility on the commercial banking space, which is really...
Except you still have your KYCs, so even if you are going to do the deal, your bank is still asking questions that people are going to be uncomfortable with.
Uncomfortable, what do you have to hide? We want to know that we're not dealing with a scammer or anybody of that nature. That's just the reality. What do you have to hide? You put forward that you're not, a scammer or anything, that you're a legitimate business person, and you're trying to get your idea off the ground. There's nothing wrong with KYC. We fill out all of this information for Uncle Sam 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Why we can't do it for us locals here so that we feel as comfortable as.
On that point, Patria, of the takeaway is that ganja and capital go hand in hand. I want to thank Chris for joining us today.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you guys definitely know how to ask the wrong questions.
And when we come back, solving Jamaica's productivity problem, more on point.
For you.
Of course,
Super.
after the break. Stay with us.
Welcome back to On Point. It's an issue Dennis bemoans a lot here on the show. Issues with productivity and how those issues are hampering economic growth. Well, we're talking solutions on the show today. We brought in the expert. We have Tamara Nelson, it's Tamar Nelson.
Tamar, that's
there
correct.
we go. She's
No A at the
acting
end.
Chief Technical Director at the Jamaica Productivity Center. Hello.
Hello, Patria.
And welcome.
And thank you for having me.
Tell her you're
Thank
well
you.
suited because you didn't bother with the A. You're just you're very
Very productive.
Right?
Come
Let's
on.
get
Straight
at
to the
Tamar.
point.
Let's get
Exactly.
to Tam. No.
So tell me, what's happening at the JPC now?
Well, right now, the big focus is on a national productivity policy. So both the
But
board...
that policy has been around for a long time. People trying to work on it.
Well, we are getting the wheels turning. We are getting support both from the government and from the private sector. So we are getting there.
You know, the expectation is going to be that you are more productive, leading by example. So when Dennis says you've been doing this for a while.
I wouldn't say we were doing it for a while. In terms of a policy approach, we really started this year. And so far...
But it has been on the books for a while.
It has been on the books for a while, right, correct. But right now we have all the traction to go forward.
How will policy make us do more?
We also have some support from the Japanese government who will be giving us technical assistance to help us along the way. So that is also in train.
How will policy help us to do more?
Well, policy will help to kind of guide and keep us in track, right? Because what you want is initiatives that will help to nurture both the private sector and to have a solid public sector to support the private sector. One of the things that we find when we studied various countries that have improved their productivity is that they had a national movement towards productivity. And what has been happening is that productivity is always spoken of, but not acted on, right? And we also find that there are not enough incentives or sanctions as it relates to productivity. So there's no real reason to have productivity on the table. And then we often get it confused with production or profit, right? But really it's the efficient and effective utilization of resources that are available.
It's a very nebulous thing where people, if you ask them, what are we talking about? They're not quite sure. And if I don't know what productivity is, how am I expected to be productive?
That's exactly right, Patria. So productivity is a good buzzword and it's sprinkled in a lot of speeches. But when it comes to actually demonstrating productivity, there is a gap. And we are aware of that. And so, you know, persons would understand productivity in various ways. So for example, if you're talking to an economist, they would understand GDP, total factor productivity, capital productivity, but the man on the street, the person at work
the
next to you,
farmer who gets accused of not being productive enough.
right, their message has to be a little bit different so that it can be consumed. Similarly to the youths. So what we are looking at, and we have been doing, is targeting the message to the various groups so that persons will understand. And we hope that, you know, for some it would be, we have the policy that will deal with initiatives, but also that movement, that revolution that will help to not only let them be aware, but to also change their mindset as it relates to productivity, because apart from the awareness, there's also a fear that goes along with it, so that there's some emotions that are associated with productivity.
Well, I'll tell you something. I'm glad you mentioned it because I think that the government is fearful of it too. The governments have been fearful of it because once you get to a productive state,
Right.
you benefit.
Yes.
But there's a pain to get in there.
There is a...
And because of that, I think our policymakers has not over the years wanted to implement what is necessary.
But what do they have to lose?
Well, initially votes. And that's it, because if you implement productivity within the public sector, for example, you're going to be talking about compensation discrimination based on productivity. The IMF agreement, for example, in 2013 said that if we want to get productive, we have to have labor market reform. We have never done it. So,
for example, and based on the studies that we have looked at, because what we're currently doing is looking at the different models right across the world and see what they have done. There is a pain point that you have to go through, which is very unpopular, right? And the countries who have increased their productivity in leaps and bounds, yes, they have done some unpopular things and led the charge. And sometimes you're in an uncomfortable situation to be productive, to grow. Mm-hmm. So some countries have gone through wars, like Japan, and they had to reinvent everything. Others, it's a dictation that you must, like Singapore. But in all cases, it wasn't just the government. It took everybody to be on board, moving in the same direction, right? So it's everybody has to buy into the vision and understand what that means for them and how they can play their role in making it happen. So as it relates to productivity, I must tell you, Dennis, that there is no magic bullet. There is no one single thing.
There's no magic bullet, but
No.
in order to walk the mile, you have to start with the first step.
We have to start.
And that is what we have not.
And we are seeing movement in the right direction. And I think, with the Ministry of Labor on board, and we have also the Confederation of Trade Unions, the Jamaica Employers Federation, to work together as a tripartite to actually move this.
When will we see it? You see it from where you sit, the vantage point of being at the ministry, in the agency.
Right.
When will we see it? The onlookers, those on the outside. When will that happen?
Well, we hope to have a concept note out in a few months' time, right? And then we'll go through the necessary steps to ensure that it happens.
After a concept note, because, what's the ultimate objective that you're trying to achieve? Take us through the process.
The ultimate objective is to bring about change and growth, right? And to facilitate that.
So give us a roadmap as to achieving that and give us a real KPI like GDP growth.
Well, that's something that I could share with you, but not at this moment. Okay. But that is definitely something that we are working on, and it's not in a form that I can share it with you right now. But it's something that I can follow up with you on and share that with you.
Well, I'm going to go back to where we started. People are expecting your agency to lead from the front.
Concept?
You must be most productive.
That is true.
One of the concerns, when you tell me that, we're learning from the Japanese model and they're doing some technical training, those who are in Japan, who come from other places, Western places, there are some who go to Japan and say Japanese people in very many corners are busy doing nothing. Mm-hmm. They look active,
right,
and they often confuse activity with productivity.
Yes.
Which is something we also are accused of sometimes.
Man. And we know persons who know how to look busy during the day.
We don't mistake activity with productivity. We mistake talking with productivity.
Right. But one of the things, having visited there myself and worked as a consultant in Japan for over a period of months, going in the various industries, what I realized is that one of the things that they have is the systems in place to be efficient and effective. And everybody has a part to play in that.
And there's order in an orderly system. And that's the problem we have. We don't have no order here.
And there is also fundamentally a culture of what they call Kaizen, which is change for good or continuous improvement. So when you go to one of the manufacturing plants, for example, what you would see is a wall strewn with improvement initiatives, not done by management, but done by members of the staff. all employees.
Our wall has graffiti.
Well, not so bad.
So, you know, and everybody contributes. So every month, they have to contribute at least one improvement initiative. So you can imagine, you know, how many working days we have per year. And if everybody in a company contributes
Tamar,
one each time.
That's a very interesting thing. Suppose the JPC actually started a program whereby they went out to workplaces and said, okay, we're going to work with you on achieving that one thing, for workers to achieve that one improvement plan every month or so.
Right.
Wouldn't something like that work?
Yes, and we do have a technical assistance program at JPC where we help companies, industries, both private and public. We go through, look at their systems and their processes and see where the gaps are and make recommendations as to improvements. You know, with any improvement, there are always low and no cost improvements that can be done. And that's one of the things that we often see when we go to different facilities, and I've been to quite a few over the last 12 years, that, you know, there's fundamentally in the Jamaican workplace, there is a lot of waste that happens.
But let's be real, and not just say workplace, because the truth is the more progressive private sector entities measure productivity.
Yes.
They measure productivity.
Yes.
And if at all that productivity measure slips, heads roll. And somebody must be held accountable.
And
it is in the public sector that we have the difference.
I think it's both. We have many companies, and that's one of the drawbacks to actually helping us to improve in terms of productivity in Jamaica. It's hard to get data, right? So a lot of our indexes are not reflective of what they truly are because we don't have a measurement culture.
Some of them we do. Look at Ministry of Education.
Yes.
If you're not passing, productivity is low.
Right.
Most of your class is failing.
So productivity,
something's wrong.
as you remember, is how efficiently you're using your resources.
Yeah, but you know the difference, Tamar, where Patria is right.
Yeah.
In the private sector, if you're not productive, you go out of business.
Yes.
In the public sector, if you're not productive, you raise tax.
And I'm not saying there is improvement all across the board, and measurement is key because it's only through the measurement that you will know where the gaps are and what needs to be fixed. And the thing with productivity, you know, is it doesn't just, you know, fix. You know, you have a problem, you fix it, and think that's it. No. The thing with bottlenecks is that it moves to another area. So you always have something that you have to fix. So the measurement is going to be key to know exactly where you need to go, what needs to be addressed, and especially now where the dynamic changes that are happening, you know, it's like seismic changes, some persons refer to it as. You know, we have to be very flexible, agile, and keep our pulse on what's happening.
Let me put you on the spot. Low-hanging fruit. What can we change tomorrow that won't bust the budget, that won't require complete mindset change of entire organizations? What can we change tomorrow to be a more productive society?
Well, there are two things that you mentioned. One is the measurement, because once you're measuring, you know exactly what you need to target. So if we all start measuring and, you know, not just keep it at a certain level, but disseminate it so everybody understands. And not only understand, but know how they contribute to that. Then you will see improvements, because we have done studies where all we have done is just set up a measurement system, and immediately you start to see the numbers go in the right direction. So once we know we are being watched, we immediately we kind of we straighten up. That's one quick low-hanging fruit. And then another thing would be to look at and measure waste in your system, you know, and because that's money that you literally have that you're washing down the drain. And sometimes when we visit organizations, it's literally you're seeing money wash down the drains. So you see persons would spend, you know, there's one place we visited recently, and they had a mixture that they put into certain containers. And that is a very expensive mixture, but in filling it, they fill it to the top so that it runs over. and then seal it. So a lot of it.
They lose 10% every time you pour.
For each can or each container, and you know, we ask them, you know, you realize, but we have to do it this way, or this is the way we have always been doing it. So it will require us really changing how we think about things. And I always said to our clients that if you're doing the same thing last year, this year, you're behind the 8 ball, right?
Because everybody else is improving.
Everybody else is improving. We can't be doing the same thing and using the same methods and machines that we are using 6, 5, 10 years ago, right? We have to see because it's not just Jamaica we are competing with. We have countries like Guyana whose GDP is expected to increase by 86%. But we know, yes.
But when you're growing on one on one is 100%, right? So.
I'm going to put Dennis in the naughty corner. Tamara, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's all get a lot more productive. We'll take a quick break and we come back with more On Point. Welcome back to On Point. Now, venture capital investment has spurred growth in a lot of economies around the world. Just how much? Take a look at the numbers.
In 2018, venture capital-backed companies based in the Americas received 53% of total venture capital investments globally. As of the fourth quarter of 2018, Juul, an electronics company based in San Francisco, received growth investment amounting to $12.8 billion. In 2018, there were 3,751 first-time financing deals into global VC-backed companies. Global venture capital companies invested $447 million in North American companies in 2017. In 2013, the value of VC investment in European companies amounted to 6.5 billion euros. By 2018, that value of investments had increased by 21.2 billion euros. Venture capitalists invested in 216 gaming companies in 2015. The peak for gaming investments was recorded in 2012 when 236 companies received outside funding from investors.
And their On Point team hit the streets and asked, do you think the Jamaican workforce is productive?
Yes, it is. Look at the buildings, look at the vehicles, look at the houses, the lives that the people are living. Maybe it is not as shared as some people would say, as even as it should, but the production is there to be seen.
Highly unproductive. I think that in terms of punctuality for one, and actually the slacking off at work is the main reasons for unproductivity.
Yes, it is, because I am a part of the Jamaica workforce and I am a very productive person. And I'm going to work now to be more productive, and after work I'll be doing more work. So we never stop. And if you look at our pace is kind of extremely fast and very aggressive. That's because we're always focused on work and just getting work done.
Yeah, man, I think the Jamaican workforce is productive, especially the young people, them likewise, them are show out and work. So I feel like it good for the country when I see the young people doing something.
Yes, they are productive because I believe Jamaicans, they're really hardworking. You know, I've worked overseas, and when I compare it with, people I work alongside, they are very hardworking. You know, they come to work, they do their work, and they even spend extra time at work. And I've been because of the work that I was in, I was able to go to different companies, and these people actually stay at work and work overtime. If you go overseas, it's a different thing. People do their work and look at the clock, 5 o'clock come and they're out of there. Yeah. And even overseas, when you work along Africans, Jamaicans, you find that we are the most hardworking over there as well.
I think so, because we are creating more jobs. Road construction is going on, so I think it's more productive.
One of the things that, my friend and mine was talking about, we're talking about the call centers that are now, in Jamaica, the BPO services, or the BPO system. And we're looking at it, in a sense, it does contribute positively to young people. Young people are now able to get a job easily in terms of whether you have 3 CXCs or you have 6. Normally it would have actually been difficult. They're now garnering some sort of experience. And in that, I can give a thumbs up. That indeed, yes, the governmental services have done that, where they have, provided that workforce or work for young people. But there's always room for improvement because we still have a lot of people who are still unemployed.
Just from my own experience, I've found that at the very least, the people I've worked with, almost universally in Jamaica, work hard. They're willing to dedicate themselves to tasks assigned, and I found that the key is for the employer to treat the worker fairly, and then you get the maximum output.
It is productive. It might not be as very productive, but productive enough where persons are able to find opportunities for themselves job-wise. So I think there are a lot of opportunities out there. It's just to what extent persons are willing to go and find it.
I'll start with the second discussion first in the recap, absolutely. And that one for me is very interesting because one of my early jobs came from a call center environment. And nowhere no productivity like call center. Your every action is measured. And I also remember a time when we actually had a focus group in that call center to take a look at what were the things that customers were calling about most and how do we get rid of those calls in a very focused,
well, it's the people
structured way.
Get compensated based on those measurements. And that is what drives it. The problem we have as a country, where we're not getting GDP growth of more than 2% consistently, is that we don't have productivity. Labor productivity has been falling in this country since the 1970s, right? A simple thing like the fact that there is collective bargaining. So the man who produces $100 gets the same raise of pay like the man who produces $1,000.
I remember George Davis wrote an article one week in the newspaper that he got a lot of flack for going through the day of a public sector, worker.
Yes.
How she reached late and she make her Milo and she go to every cubicle and she talked to everybody.
And then the day done.
The day was done.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of criticism for it. But the truth is, we can find a way to waste time.
Yeah.
We can find a lot of ways to waste time.
We don't measure it. People don't get paid based on their productivity. In the private sector, people do, because if you don't make money, the business go under.
And in manufacturing also, the people who are, and this is the interesting one for me, because the people who are at the very base of the manufacturing sector, many of them get paid by productivity. But I think as we move up through middle management and even senior management, there isn't this recognition that use of capital. And that use of capital and productivity, those measurements have a relation, a correlation, and that there is more that we can do as a society and drive our people to do as a society. So, it's an interesting discussion
it is.
that needs to move beyond the talk to actual application.
But we don't, we get stuck on talking. We don't move past that. And then the other one though is the Caribbean Alternative Investment Association, which is a very interesting topic, a very interesting development, but and it has a lot of growth potential. But right now, the amount of money that's in alternative investments, which is really where our developed capital market is in Jamaica and the Caribbean, is very small, as Chris said, about 0.1%.
I think one of the things that he said on that vein that is going to be tough for some projects to get financed is that the capital is chasing the best return on investment. And when you look at investing in something like a small entrepreneurial venture, that's not going to give you the multiples of X versus a real estate development. That you put your pot on fire, you're going to get a whole heap more than you put in on that one.
It goes back to the second conversation we're having in productivity, that a lot of the government bureaucracy prohibits the productivity of the small man who needs the capital to flow there. Chicken egg. Chicken or an egg. I mean, solutions have to be found though, and I welcome the move
to look at the alternative options to investment, because I remember the time when entrepreneurs were saying, my bank won't give me a loan. And the fact that we're diversifying that landscape and looking at other alternatives, I actually celebrate that move. So yeah. Gotta say a big thank you to my award-winning crew that work on this show. Thank you so much to all of you. Thanks also to you, the viewers at home who tune in week after week for On Point. I'm Patria K.
And I'm Dennis Chung.
See you next week.
On Point was brought to you by Dodge & Global.